This segment I've been looking forward to because one of the Democrats' biggest targets to flip the House of Representatives is Michigan's 7th congressional district. It includes the state capital, Lansing, in southern Michigan. It's currently represented by Tom Barrett, a Republican serving his first term. The district has mostly been held by Republicans, but in 2022, Elissa Slotkin managed to flip it blue. She gave up her seat in 2024, though, to run for the U.S. Senate and then won. But Barrett managed to flip it back to red in the same election. He actually just appeared on stage at a rally with Donald Trump in Michigan, literally this last Monday. Michigan's 7th district is one of only 3 congressional districts in the country that has voted for the winner in every presidential election since 2008. That makes it a perfect bellwether district ahead of next week's primaries. This next Tuesday, August 4th, Democrats in the 7th will select one of 3 candidates in a tight race between 2 moderates and a progressive candidate running for their party's nomination. Matt Masdom is a former Navy SEAL who has received a crucial endorsement from Senator Slotkin, herself a moderate Democrat who, again, has won this district herself before. Bridget Brink is a former ambassador to Ukraine who resigned in protest of President Trump's handling of the war there. In William Lawrence, he's a co-founder of the progressive climate organization Sunrise Movement. We have all 3 of them back to back to back joining us tonight. And why this race we think is worthy of us highlighting is because it's part of an intra-party debate around the country right now happening on how to take back the House for Democrats. I was just talking with a GOP operative working on key races around the country nationally, and they insist that it's not a given that Democrats are going to take back some of these seats because they're confident about some of the Republicans that are running in places like Michigan's 7th district. Joining me now is Matt Masdom. He is a former U.S. Navy SEAL running for Congress in Michigan's 7th district. Matt, appreciate you joining us here tonight. What is the issue that you're finding that you believe is going to be driving voters to the polls in your district, not just next week, but also in November?
Hi, Vaughn. It's great to be here. You know, the biggest thing people want in this district is they want a fighter who can win in the fall. And so accountability for violating the Constitution is a big thing. Affordability is a big thing. Corruption is a big thing. But they want somebody who can win in the fall.
A campaign PAC, I think it's worth noting, with no publicly available donor list, has spent more than $700,000 opposing you and propping up ads for William Lawrence, one of your opponents, somebody who's been endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders. And you've accused Republicans of meddling in this primary to try to influence the outcome. Do you think that William Lawrence is, we should be clear, an ardent progressive? Do you believe that he can beat Tom Barrett in November?
I think what you just said, you know, at the start of that question is all people need to know for the fall. Republicans see me as the biggest threat to Tom Barrett, so they're trying to smear my record and prop up William Lawrence so they can win in the fall. They see me, the Republicans see me as a threat. They see me as a fighter, and they're nervous about having me there in November to race against Tom Barrett.
This is, by all accounts, it's difficult, I realize, with polling in a congressional race, a primary, let alone that, to really understand, what the numbers are. But we believe this is a competitive race among the 3 of you right now. And I think it's worth noting that you served 20 years as a SEAL. Bridget Brink was an ambassador to Ukraine. And I think it's worth asking for an engagement to the extent from your conversations with voters. How much do you feel like there is a growing kind of this America First mentality that is existing within the left in terms of what voters want out of you and why they're looking potentially at even voting for William Lawrence?
I think like I've said, they want a fighter. When I'm on the doors and talking to groups of people, I've been doing little events every night, and they really just want somebody who's going to take it to Trump and who can beat Tom Barrett in the fall. And so if we're looking to that person, the polls say it's me. I think it's going to take a veteran to get a veteran out of this space. This is largely determined by independents in the fall. And so I do super well with those voters, 48 points better than anybody else in this race. So if we want to win, I'm the guy to go in November.
You were endorsed by Elissa Slotkin, the current senator who used to hold this seat. What does that endorsement mean to your campaign?
Oh, it's fantastic. I've had a big uptick in momentum this last month, and that was like jet fuel. She's done a great job in this district. She's carved a wonderful path for somebody with my background, and she's beloved. And so I've had so many people say to me, hey, Alyssa said you're the right person. You're the person to get Barrett out. That's all I need to know. Senator Slotkin is somebody people look up to, myself included, and we want to make sure that we do the right thing by the voters and by her and win this election in the fall.
We were reporting just earlier this week that Tom Barrett was one of a few House Republicans that actually voted for a resolution against the war powers of President Trump when it comes to his use of the military for his offensive campaign in Iran, but then appeared on the campaign stage. When you're looking at Tom Barrett as your Republican opponent, where do you believe his vulnerabilities are when voters may suggest, hey, on one hand, he is able to condemn the president's use of the military in Iran, for example, but on the other hand, still appear on stage with him?
Well, Tom Barrett has a constituent of one, and that's Donald Trump. Tom Barrett does no events here in the district. He does not do any town halls. He's almost entirely absent. And he only, voted for the resolution after giving Trump a blank check on 2 previous votes. And so as a veteran, he knows better. The president didn't lay out the case to the United States, to Congress, and say, this is what we're trying to accomplish in Iran. This is the plan to do so, and this is how we get out. Tom Barrett knows better than that, and he gave Trump a blank check, and that's not okay with me, the voters in this district, or America.
Matt Masdom, thank you for your time tonight. Take care of these next days ahead. And joining me now, Bridget Brink. She's a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, now also running for Congress in Michigan's 7th District. Ambassador, thanks for joining us here. I'm going to ask you the same question. What is the issue that you believe is going to be the driving issue that determines the winner, not just next week, but also in November?
Well, thanks so much for having me on. I just want to say I'm a 6th-generation Michigander, and I so proudly serve my country, including on President Obama's National Security Council and as the first female war zone ambassador. And I am running for Congress to stand up to Trump. I think it's really important that we stand up and fight for the things that our community is most worried about, and that is lowering costs, fixing our broken healthcare system, and defending our democracy. I'm the only person in this race who's actually stood up to Trump when I resigned in protest because of Trump's appeasement of Putin, and that's exactly what I'm going to do in Congress.
To be rather direct about this, kind of jumping off the question that I asked Matt, you were literally the ambassador to Ukraine for the Biden administration, and you're in a tough race against the co-founder of a progressive political organization. From conversations with voters, do you feel like government experience is viewed in your party today less of an asset maybe than it once was?
I think that people are looking for someone who is going to stand up to Trump and deliver for our district and be focused on the issues that are the highest concern of our district. We have knocked tens of thousands of doors across the district, and what I hear about is concern over skyrocketing costs, the fact that healthcare is not affordable or accessible, and that there is an assault on our democracy that is happening under Donald Trump. I am someone who has stood up to him before, and I will do it again. I think it's important to have experience to know how to work in Congress and how to get things done. I also have this experience having worked for 5 presidents, both Democrat and Republican, and worked with Congress. And I think we have to win and we have to deliver. And I am prepared to do that. And I will always stand up for what's right.
Ambassador, in the lead-in to this segment here, I described this primary as a race between 2 moderates and 1 progressive. And I realize, that's a simplification. How would you describe yourself politically? Because there's a lot of people around the country that are watching this right now and watching with keen interest in this primary. And to the extent that it can be extracted to look elsewhere around the country about where the Democratic Party is going, how would you describe yourself?
I would describe myself as someone who's a fighter. I've been in a lot of tough fights, including battling Putin in a war zone for 3 years in Ukraine, including fighting breast cancer during my campaign this last year, but also standing up to Trump. And I think what people are sick and tired of is politics as normal. What they want is someone who's actually going to represent their interests and deliver those. That's what I came back home to do after serving our country. That is what I am going to do in Congress. I think the problem we have right now is a broken Washington that serves corporate special interests and leaves mid-Michigan families behind. I hear this everywhere. They want someone who's going to step up and serve and deliver and be accountable.
Do you believe that William Lawrence, the progressive candidate backed by Bernie Sanders, could win in the general election against Tom Barrett?
I'm focused on running a race that is going to win the primary and win the general. And I think
that's part of it. Some voters are wondering, if I may, with all due respect, Ambassador, voters are wondering that question. They may be inclined to vote for the progressive. They may be somebody that voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020. But if you're trying to win over those voters, is there part of this calculation that you would tell them that you don't think that William Lawrence could pull off a victory in November?
I think I'm the candidate who can win both the primary and the general. The primary is going to require someone who is willing to stand up and fight against Trump and deliver for the people of our district. And the general is going to require somebody who can also appeal to independents and others, potentially Republicans, to win the general election as well. The fact of the matter is Tom Barrett is enabling Trump at every single turn and not serving or delivering for our district. And that's what I would run on in the general. And I believe that is the winning message. We need a candidate who can meet the moment. And we need a candidate who also is going to be able to deliver, because we need to win both of these.
I want to sneak in one quick last question for you here. To what extent are you hearing from voters, or are you pitching your voters on your time as ambassador to Ukraine? How much of an issue is the war? Were you hearing more of domestic economic questions and engagement?
I would just say my foreign policy experience is directly relevant to the issues that are most important to our district. If you want to look at what's causing the skyrocketing price of gas or fertilizer or goods in the grocery store, you can just look at the way Trump went into the Iran war. Or if you want to look at why farmers are facing closing markets and higher costs for inputs, it's because of the reckless tariffs. So these things are not, you can't separate the foreign policy from how it affects us at home. And in fact, there is a direct impact on the people of mid-Michigan on these terrible policies of Donald Trump, which are being enabled by Tom Barrett. And so, yes, people are interested in Ukraine and the fight for freedom, but it's also a lot of these other policies that are having a bad impact on the people of our district. And I am focused on doing everything I can to lower costs, make healthcare more affordable, and defend our democracy from the assault by Donald Trump.
Former Ambassador Bridget Brink, appreciate your time. All the best to you these days ahead as well. Thank you. And joining me now, the third candidate in the Democratic primary for Michigan's 7th Congressional District, William Lawrence. He is the co-founder of the Sunrise Movement, running for Congress here ahead of that Tuesday primary. And William, I used your name a lot in those first two lines of questioning here. So this is your turn. You're third up here. And I just want to start with the exact same question I had them. What is the issue that you are hearing from voters that you believe is going to be the driving result for not only next week, but also in November?
People are hungry for change. And one of the biggest examples of that is the movement against AI data centers that has been bubbling up all over this district. And I've been standing alongside residents all across the 7th District, fighting back against billionaires from Silicon Valley and Wall Street, working to push these data centers into our communities with really no democracy or self-determination for the people most impacted. And I spent my career fighting against concentrated economic power, corporate power, fighting alongside working people. So for me, it's a no-brainer to stand with the residents, fighting back and calling for a federal moratorium on new data centers. That's been one of the biggest issues that we've been hearing on the campaign trail.
You're making the case that you can win the general election against Tom Barrett in November. And I've been covering primaries and general elections here for the last decade in the Trump era, and I've struggled to come up with a progressive candidate who not only won the primary, but then won a competitive purple district Senate and House races over the course of the last 10 years. And I would like to know, what are you telling voters that are convinced that progressives can win primaries and safe blue seats, but not sure that they can win purple ones?
Well, I would actually point to Chris Deluzio in Pennsylvania as an example of someone who's a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus who won a tough district and has held that district with increasingly large margins. But the fact of the matter is, people are tired of corporate-funded candidates. They're tired of corporate Democrats, and they're tired of corporate-funded Republicans. And all of the polling bears that out. You see that Congress is very unpopular. Both parties in Congress are very unpopular, even more so in some cases than the dramatically unpopular president. And the way that we win in this moment is by showing up where the people are, standing with them on the issues that are most of concern, and offering the change that they're demanding. And because I'm not taking the corporate money, it is a no-brainer for me to fight against these data centers, to fight for Medicare for All, which is popular across our district because people are sick of having to battle with their insurance companies for the most basic coverage, if you even have coverage, and to stop these stupid wars around the world and bring our money home to invest in housing and healthcare for the American people.
Your district, effectively, if the 7th district in Michigan doesn't flip for Democrats, there's a big question mark of how Democrats nationally get to a majority in the House. And part of that is building a coalition. And that's why I want to, in 2024 podcast, you said in part, while talking about, quote, black political leadership in the Democratic Party, that it was, quote, a big problem. And I want to ask you about the audio that we'll play here on the other side of this.
It's not something I can talk too much about because I'm white and it's not my struggle. That being said, like the extent to which the older generation of black political leadership are such of a pillar, frankly, for establishment, capitalist, imperialist, American power, through their role, as this kind of traditionalist, establishmentist pillar of the Democratic Party, it's a big problem. It's a big problem for left politics in this country, and it gets us every single time, and it really defangs the white left, puts us in in impossible positions, really.
William, how do you convince Democrats that these statements will not alienate not just voters of color, but also white voters in the general election?
Well, this was in the context of a conversation with a black organizer about his work to organize black people in support of Palestine, against the genocide in Gaza, and against our disastrous foreign policy more broadly. And I've stated that I made that point poorly. It was a clumsy choice of words, in particular, the use of the phrase a white left. I don't give a darn about building a white left. I'm here to build a multiracial democracy that lives up to its highest promises of our nation. But I'll stand every day by my record here in Lansing. I mean, long before I was ever a candidate, I have been doing work in coalition with the African American community here in Lansing, working to prevent unjust evictions, working to build more affordable housing. And people know where I've been. They've seen me showing up. And when these old remarks were reported, a lot of folks here in the Lansing area from the black community reached out to, say, we've got your back. This is something that people in D.C. may be worried about, but we know where you stand and we've seen your work. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, is just showing up to support and represent everybody here in the 7th District.